Hi everybody, welcome back to Iron Wheels Gaming, and I'm Iron Wheels. Welcome back to the garage. Today I want to talk about one of my favorite games, Disco Elysium. It is a detective role-playing game developed by Zelm Studios. It is their very first game. They are a very small studio out of Estonia, which is extremely rare. And so I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna break this video down into two parts. I'm gonna break down the story a bit, and then I'm gonna break down the mechanics. So to set up the story, and I'm not gonna give too much away, but you are a amnesiac detective who has a drug and alcohol problem. You have been sent to the town of Revew to solve a murder. Someone's been it turns out they've been hung, and you were sent there as a detective to figure out how and why. You wake up 3 days after arriving, having apparently done nothing on the case, in the hotel room you are staying in nothing but your underwear and an empty beer bottle next to you. You then spend your time. You can either do what I did, and that is turn to the straight and narrow, so try to solve the case, or apparently you can completely forego that objective and just continue to enjoy your alcohol and drug infused party animal lifestyle. Now, I have not played that style yet. I've only played the game once, so I don't know how far it lets you go off on that path. I don't know if it forces you to solve the case anyway, but according to what I've seen from a few other people, you can go on quite uh, some crazy tangents and just become a party animal. So, uh, but anyway, you spend your time in this town of Shaw, which has been ravaged by there was a political and cultural uprising that occurred there, and many of the folk that are there have their own views and what they think happened and what they think should happen, and this all takes place in a fictional. They don't even tell you what year it is. The most you ever get out of people or the environment is that it is 69. The game gives off to me like a 50s or 60s and 70s vibe, excuse me, and it sort of seems it's definitely European, I believe, but it gives off to me a little bit of a French vibe. But the people there are um, come from all walks of life, and this game is not afraid to tackle political issues. It doesn't shove any particular values down your throat, I don't think, but it does. It's not afraid to tackle racism and those kind of things, and communism, socialism, capitalism. It talks about all of that, and there are characters in the game that each they're kind of over exaggerations, characterizations of those types of ideals. You have the ultra capitalists and then the socialists and the communists. But this game kind of gives you the chance to, if you want to delve into that kind of stuff, you can, um, or you can ignore it as much as possible. It seems like it's hard to avoid it completely just because of the people that you narratively have to go through at points. They're going to like expose their views to you, so you're gonna have to deal with the politics a little bit. But I personally don't feel like I was pushed to side one way or the other. Um, but the world is really interesting. It's definitely kind of a dystopian like post-revolutionary thing. I don't want to give too much away, so I think I'll just we'll go on the mechanics for a little bit. This game is heavily influenced and based off of tabletop role playing. It is a game entirely worked around dice rolls. So unlike Dungeons and Dragons, this game relies on a 2d6, that is two six-sided dice rolls for everything, for every check. So two sixes are always a success, and two ones are always a failure. And so what happens is you have four main attributes and six skills underneath each attribute category. So the skills, as many points as you have in them, from 1 to 6, it will add that to any roll that involves that attribute. And then if you have points into any of the skills underneath that, so like let's say you want to do a visual calculus roll to recreate a crime scene, it would take however many points you had in the intellect attribute and then add that to however many points you had in your visual calculus skill, and then you will roll the two dice, and then it will add those values together, and if you meet or exceed the difficulty of the check, you'll pass. If you go underneath it, you'll fail. There are two types of checks in this game. There are white checks, which are checks that can be retried, but you have to have something that you either have to naturally increase your relevant skill, or you have to have some sort of tool or item that gives you a boost in that skill to retry it. But if you can do that, if you can get a boost in that skill, you can retry that white task as many times as you want. Red checks, however, are one try. You get one try. Now you can decide in a lot of cases once you see a red check to say, I don't feel comfortable rolling that skill right now. I'm gonna wait till maybe I'm a little bit stronger, or I have some things that will boost me up, and then I'll retry it. But red checks, you can try once. If you fail it, that's it. If you succeed, that's also it. So, um, but you might be saying, well, how do I increase my skills? Well, there are a couple of ways. You can obviously do that naturally. The level up progression is linear. It is 100 XP for every level, and it gives you one skill point. So you can either do it that way, or you can. There are tons of clothing items in the game that give you boosts and negatives in different skills. So like a basketball jersey will give you like +1 to your endurance or something, but it might give you a negative to your persuasion, your suggestion. But so you can either do clothing or you can do drugs. Drugs and alcohol, or any consumable, but most of them are drugs and alcohol. But any consumable will give you temporary bonuses and penalties. Clothing is permanent as long as you're wearing them, but you can swap them at any point as long as you're not in a conversation or in some sort of like dialogue, action sequence, whatever. You can change your clothing as much as you want to suit the situation. Uh, but one of the unique aspects of Disco Elysium is what it calls the thought cabinet. The thought cabinet is the place where you have ideas. So as you play the game, depending on the choices you make and the things you say to people, it can unlock thoughts. So most people won't get the same thoughts, and you won't get every thought on one playthrough because many of them are continue. They're like if then kind of things, where if you get this one, then you can't get that one. So it doesn't tell you that, but once you've seen them, some of them, you realize, oh, I got that because I did this. And then if you look at some other ones, you go, oh, if I'd have done it the other way, I would have gotten this one. So some of them, a lot of them are skill bonuses. Some of them increase your cap in your level in your attribute levels, which means one thing I forgot to mention was that the more skill you put in your attributes, your intellect, psyche, those kind of ones, the more you put into those, the more points you can spend in their sub skills. So let's say, like for example, I put 5 in my intellect. So for skills like for a skill like encyclopedia, I could put 5 points max into that, which meant if you do that, you would roll. If you rolled an encyclopedia check, I would get a +10 because I have 5 in my intellect and 5 in my encyclopedia, which gives me 10, as opposed to something like my pain threshold in my physique category where I only had 1 point. I can then only add one more point to my pain threshold, giving me a +2. But there are certain drugs or consumables that can raise your cap. Those are usually temporary. Sometimes you can get unlocked thoughts that, as long as you internalize them, which is taking a thought and like solidifying it, you have a limited number of thought cabinet slots. So as you unlock thoughts, you have to decide, do I want this one or do I just want to leave it? And so if you put it in a slot, it takes a certain amount of in-game time and you internalize it, and they give you temporary bonuses or penalties while you're internalizing it. And then once you've done it, it cannot give you bonuses. Sometimes it's straight bonuses to a skill. Other times it's an increase to the cap for your attribute. So let's say you do one that increases let's say my intellect cap, then my cap would go from 5 to 6. So that doesn't mean I get a point in intellect, but it means I can raise all my intellect skills, encyclopedia, reason, logic, those. I can increase all of those up to a maximum of 6, which if I did that would give me a +11 on a skill roll. So, but the game also has you, because it takes place all in one town and over several days, you're talking to the same people multiple times. And what I love about this game is that because you talk to people multiple times, what you say to them actually matters. So if someone gets angry at you and doesn't like what you've said to them or whatever, that might actually give you a negative modifier if you're trying to get information out of them. Say, like, if you're trying to be like, hey, do you know anything about this? What can you tell me? You might actually get a -1 to your roll because they don't want to work with you because they don't like you. Just the opposite if you help someone out, or if you, sometimes it's agreeing with their ideology, that can give you +1s. And they can stack. You can have multiple different things, 2 things that give you a +1, giving you a +2. You can have 2 that have a +1 and something else that gives you a -1 for a net +1, or, they can't, some that cancel out. So it's really, you have to be careful about what you say to the characters in the world, because it can influence, not only it can influence your relationship with them, which is the way role-playing games should be, in my opinion. So that's awesome. I love this game. It's hard. I'm gonna wrap it up. But it's hard to think of negative stuff and things that I didn't like. Um, there really isn't much. It took me over 30 hours to play it, so for me that's good replay value. I have tried to start second playthroughs, but every time I do, I just kind of feel like I loved my first one so much. I don't really want to do it another way. I kind of just want to keep it the way it is. But if you are one of those people that wants to see all the different outcomes and how different the game plays out, because apparently it can play out quite differently depending on how you interact and what skills you use, um, then you can get way more. Like I said, I got over 30, probably 35 hours or so. So you can probably get 60 hours easy if you want to replay it another time. And it seems like I missed out on a lot of stuff. So overall, I give this game. I can't see myself giving a game a 10 out of 10. No game's perfect, but I give it like a 9.9. I really love this game, and especially as I mentioned earlier, this being Zelm's first game ever. I think they did a fantastic job. I really look forward to. I hope they continue making games because it sounds like they kind of stumbled into this, and so I hope they enjoyed it and continue to make them. And because I would be really interested, especially if they continue making role playing games. I will say that this is a mature game. It deals with mature subjects. There's drugs and alcohol use and language and stuff. And so, for those of you that have kids, have children, buy this for them at your discretion. I would say teenagers, for the most part, in my opinion, should be fine. Anyone teenager and above, it's those that have 10, 11, 12-year olds or something that obviously you know your children. If you think your children can handle serious subjects and serious and social issues, then by all means I say buy it. Also, it's for PC only, and I believe it's for download only. I looked before uploading before recording this video, and both on Steam and on GOG it was $39.99. So I think it's well worth $40. I look once in a while. It doesn't seem to go on sale that often. So I mean, it's a great game, and it seems like people love it looking at the reviews and everything. So if you don't have to discount it, then why would you? But I think it's worth $40 if you want to try to wait for the price to go down. Then by all means, we're coming up on Christmas, so maybe there'll be a Christmas sale and you can get it for a little bit cheaper then. But I highly recommend Disco Elysium for anyone that likes narrative-driven RPGs or wants to get into one. It's a little weird. It's definitely a lot of reading. It's as I've said, a very narrative-driven story. There's no combat, so if you're okay with that, if you like heavily narrative-driven RPGs, then definitely check this one out. I should have another video coming at you guys soon, so come back and see us again at the Game Garage. Have a nice day.